my siblings and I were kind of 3, 4, and 5 respectively, my father used to make us line up in the living room before people would come over and make us practice shaking hands, right? And he'd be like, look me in the eye, look me in the eye, look me in the eye, right? Like the dad in The Sound of Music, but, scarier. Okay? So a lot of people might have been put off of presenting themselves after that. But what it did for me was it sparked a lifelong passion. So how can you present your best self in any situation? UCLA did a study of the 3 components of your message: verbal, vocal, and visual. And what they discovered is that people actually only remember 7% of the words that you say. So 38% of your impact comes from your tonal quality, what your voice is doing while you're speaking, and then 55% comes what your body's doing while you're talking. So my whole job, and what I'm going to talk to you about, is, okay, given that, how do you make what you're going to be saying as memorable as possible? And then how do you organize your physicality and your tonality so that nothing detracts from what you're trying to accomplish? Yale University did a study of the 12 most persuasive words in the English language. And what they learned is that the most persuasive word in the English language is you. So the more that you can, when you're talking to people, be like, as I'm sure you know, and as I'm sure you've heard, and when I was thinking about talking to you today, and it's you, and it's you, and it's you. And that makes sense, right? Because everybody gets up in the morning, and you're the hero of your own story, right? And then you go moving through your day, and you meet someone who seems to feel the same way, and you're like, I like him, right? Okay, so you is important. The next statistic that I give people comes from a social psychologist in California named Ellen Langer, who did a study that showed that there's one word in the English language that increases the possibility of cooperation from 60 to 94%. Any guesses about what that might be? It's actually because. I wanted to talk to you today because. And again, what happens is you get up in the morning and you're super clear on everything you need to get done all day, but everyone else is, kind of running their own agenda. And what I always tell my clients is this works just as well in real life as it does in a business context, because if you're in the supermarket and somebody tries to cut the line, right, you're pissed. But if they turn to you and they say, do you mind if I cut the line because I'm late to pick up my kids at school, you're going to let the line cut go. Like, you'll still be pissed, but you'll let the line cut go. So you really need to give people the because behind any request that you make and spell that out. And the third part of this, and this is really the formula for getting people to do what you want them to do for you anytime, comes from the Duncan Hines cake mix marketing team. Have any of you bumped into this? So when Duncan Hines first started making cake mix, the decision to have you at home add the egg was actually made in the marketing department. Because what they learned is that when we do that, we're like, oh, I baked, right? I contributed to the cake. And there's no reason for that, right? There's powdered egg. We've got the technology. But those mixes where they just say add water and you feel kind of sad and bad about yourself, right? You're being manipulated. So, okay, how does this work in a business context? You need to find the egg of the person that you're meeting with. And I'll tell you a story to make my point. Studies show that people remember stories longer, they trust them more, and they repeat them more accurately. So one day I sat down to meet with an actress who was going in to read for a really, really strong female part. And I said to her, I was like, why do you want to play this part? She's like, I love this part, and I feel like I was born to play this part. And I thought, oh, it's going to be such a long day. So, so then I said, okay. I said, let's look at the resume of the gentleman that you're meeting with. And it turned out that he had produced both Kramer versus Kramer and Fatal Attraction. And for those of you who are old enough to remember these movies, right, these are really strong female parts. So she was able to go into her meeting with him and say, I was so excited when I found out it was you because you're the person who created these iconic characters, and it came as no surprise to me that you would buy this script. And he was like, it's true, That was his egg. That's what he was contributing to her success. So you plus because plus the egg is your formula, and telling stories again. So that's your 7% in making that memorable. 38% of your impact comes from your tonal qualities, what your voice is doing while you're speaking. And this is as seemingly small as when you meet somebody and they're like, I'm really happy to meet you. And you're like, well, they don't seem very happy. I don't really think I like them very much. All right, so if you're going to say you're happy, I need you to sound happy, okay? And I need you to look happy. I want a whole lot of happy happening, The other thing to think about this is anytime you have to apologize for anything, right? How many of you have had to call like your telephone service company and they've been given a script and they're like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And you're like, don't sound sorry, all right? And day to day, where does this happen? This happens in your voicemail greeting. And again, I'll tell you a story. I was working with one of my clients, and he said, let's call your voicemail greeting, and we did. And he's like, hey, this is so-and-so, and I am sorry I missed your call. I was like, sweetie, can't sound like you're at Disney World, right? You need to sound sad. I'm so sorry I missed your call. Do I sound regretful? It's like when you go over to somebody's house, they have a little dog that's jumping all over you, and they're like, oh, you're such a bad dog. You're the worst dog in the world. I'll make the dog stop, right? You need to change that tone. All right? Day to day, again, if you do a lot of work on the telephone, I want you to do it standing, because standing automatically gives your voice so much more energy and animation. And ideally, I want you to do it looking in a mirror, because it is impossible to look at yourself in the mirror and not amuse yourself. You're going to be like, I'm so funny, and I'm so interesting, and it's really, really helpful. Particularly if you're talking about a product or a service that you have that you've been talking about a million, billion times. It's also helpful if someone asks you a question that makes you tense. You're going to see your face tense up. That's going to remind you to inhale and pause and speak on an exhalation, which gives your voice so much more resonance and authority. So 55% of your impact comes from what your body's doing while you're speaking. And I work a lot with people on standing in neutral. What does neutral look like? It looks like this. All right? Doesn't look like this. Don't do that. All right? People think they can fake me out with this one. My dad used to do this. Don't do that. All right? So it's just right here. And I'll tell a story again to make my point. A few years ago, I don't remember how many of you saw the Hope for Haiti benefit. Now, it was interesting, like the Tom Hankses and the Brad Pitts and everybody's getting up, but they all have a lot of weird stuff happening with their bodies. And the two people that night who stood in neutral beautifully were former President Clinton. Love him or hate him, the man can stand in neutral. You're going to notice it now. Right? He's just like, thank you so much. Thank you. Right? And then Denzel Washington, right? Because he's Denzel. But then the next morning, what you could do is I got up and I saw all the wrap-up of the Hope for Haiti benefit. Who did they show? President Clinton, Denzel Washington. So neutral's here. You want to think about if you have slides. You want to stand here and have people look at your slides and stand here and look at your slides. Because I'm in your biofeedback loop right now. If I'm standing here and making you look at slides, you don't like me as much. Okay? So if you ever have to stand up in front of a room full of people, this is where you want to go. Let me talk for a second about sitting in a chair. A lot of people find it funny that I teach people how to sit in a chair, but, there are a lot of ways to make a living, and I've managed to monetize this one. So I got a call from one of the movie magazines, and they said, can you come in and meet with one of our editors? Because he's very tall and he's very handsome, blah, blah, blah. And he goes on to talk about, the best summer movie roundup for Entertainment Tonight or whatever, and they never use the tape, and we don't know why. And I was like, yeah, because nothing's more fun than that. So this guy walks in, and he's very tall, and he's very handsome, and he sits down in the chair, and he goes, well. And I was like, I am so finished with your coaching session right now, because nobody wants to talk to this guy, right? No. All right, so if you're in a chair, I want you right here. Okay, I don't want you all the way on the edge of the chair, like, oh, please pick me. No, don't go here, right? But just right here, because there's a big difference between my talking to you like this and my even talking to you like this. All right? You're going to sit in meetings now, and you're going to be like, so-and-so needs to organize their body. All right? So then what am I going to talk about next? What do you do with your hands at that point if you're sitting at a table? Here's the thing. We trust you when we can see your hands, and we don't trust you when we can't. That's why the first thing they say to an alleged criminal is hands up. So how do I want your hands? It's true. It's true. It's a cellular level thing. Okay, come on, work with me. So those meetings where everybody walks in and they go like this, and you think, it is going to be a long day. All right, this is just the sitting down version of this when you're standing. Okay, don't want this. Then one of my clients said to me, well, what if I listen to you like that? I said, you look like you don't believe me. This is this face. But then one of my guys said, well, you want me to sit like that? I was like, well, not like you're getting fingerprinted, because particularly, because you work in finance. So don't do that. So really, I want your hands right about here. So as you can see, I've got a number of tools and tricks, and none of them is that, scary, or something probably you hadn't thought of before. But it's an aggregate of small things. And if you do one of these or all 10 of these, I guarantee that you'll be presenting your best self in any situation. Thank you.